In few previous videos we have covered different type of data types, and now we can store any kind of data in this application. For example, we have covered integers, we have covered decimals, float, string, boolean, so many things were there and we have covered all of them. But now let's talk about one example. I have a group of employees and there are around 50 employees or 100 employees in that group, and I want to display their names on my console window. How can I do that? So if I talk about the learning that we have covered so far in this course, is that because we have to store only the name, so we can create 100 variables of type string and we can store their names in those variables, and one by one we can display all those values on the console screen. But this is not the optimal way. Now let's take some bigger example. Let's say I want to display the name of all the people that are living in a particular city or country or anywhere. That list is very large and we cannot declare a separate variable for each single data. So what is the solution of this kind of problem? The solution is that we need to combine all those data under one single variable. What does it mean? It means instead of having different variable for each data, we can combine all those data under one single variable. And this concept is possible by using multiple ways in C# programming language. There are arrays, there are collections, and under the collections there are different types to hold this type of data. So based on the need, we will pick up one of the collection and we will use it in our application. But here, because this is just the beginning, so we will start our learning from array. Array is the most fundamental and most used type to store similar type of data under one single variable. There are a couple of things that you need to know before learning more about array. Array or array, you can call it whatever you want to say, but array is something that will store only similar type of data. It means if we are dealing with the strings, then we can only store strings value in that particular array. Or if we are dealing only with the integers, then we can store only integers in that array. The main concept is when you will declare your array, you have to provide a type. If you have declared that data type, then you cannot change the data after declaring it. Let's learn more about this array and let's see how to declare this array. To declare the array in C# programming language, we have to use first the data type. For example, I want to declare an array of integer data type. So here I'm writing this integer like this, and after the integer we have to use square bracket like this. Now give a meaningful name over here. Let's say it is numbers, and give the equal symbol, and over here you have to write new, then int, and use again the square bracket. In this square bracket you have to tell how many numbers will be there. That is the main concept in the array. Before using an array, you have to tell it explicitly that these are the number of elements that I want in this particular array. So let's say here I'm using only 5. What I have done, I have declared an array of integer type and it can store maximum 5 elements. Remember, this is the maximum capacity of this array. If it is maximum, then we can store less number than this 5. For example, this number array can hold only 1 element or 2 element or 3 element or 4 elements or 5 elements, but it cannot store 6 elements because the maximum capacity is 5 of this particular array. Let's say I want to assign some values while declaring it. So over here I can simply use one curly bracket, and in that curly bracket I can write all my values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. Now if you want to display all those values on the console screen, then remember the loops that we have covered in the previous videos. You can use any one of them over here. So for example, I want to use this for each loop, and let's use this console.writeLine like this. Run this application and you will notice we are getting all the elements one by one on my console screen. Over here you can see we are having all of them. Let's talk about the second way of declaring the arrays. So here let's create one more line and let's give numbers 1 name over here, and this time you don't have to use this new int5. Based on the type that you have written over here in the beginning and the total count of elements that you have written on the right hand side, this array will work. So it means this numbers 1 array that you have declared over here can only contains integer types and the maximum capacity is 1 2 3 4 5, that is the 5 elements. I can also increase it while declaring it, but after declaring it I cannot change its capacity. Let's prove this concept with an example. So in the previous one you can notice we are using 5 maximum capacity of this array, but let's say what will happen if I'm adding one more element over here. Immediately at the compile time you can see we are getting an error, and it is saying an array initializer of length 5 is expected. It means you can only initialize 5 lengths over here, and now you are using 6, so that is a problem. Let's remove it. And this time if I want to display all the values of this numbers 1 array, so here I can use this numbers 1, and let's run it. And here you can notice we are getting all the elements. Over here in the second one, because we have not defined the maximum capacity explicitly, so it depends on number of elements that you are writing over here. If you are writing only 2, then that would be the maximum capacity or the length of this array. Let's learn another way of declaring this array. So here I will copy it one more time, and let's use 2 over here, and over here I'm simply using this new and then the square bracket. This is also one of the way that you can use to declare your array. Let's learn about one more type. So this time you don't have to write this int at the left hand side, you can simply use this where at this place, and let's give a unique name this time. So we are having this numbers 1 2 and the 3. So these are some ways that you can use to declare your array. Now let's learn more about these arrays, and for that let's just comment all these things, and here let's learn few more concepts. Okay, so either you can use the same concept or you can also use this kind of simplest approach, that is up to you. Now if you want to get and set the values in array, then you have to understand one concept which is called as index. An index is something that starts from 0. So it means if I'm talking about this particular array, it has these number of elements, and if I want to talk about the indexes, then the first element is available at index 0. So the index of the first element is 0, the index of the second element is 1, the index of the third element is 2. So basically it will start from 0 1 2 3 4. So for this particular array the index will range from 0 to 4. Perfect. And it is not only about integer, you can store any kind of type in your array. So let's declare one more array over here, and this time I'm gonna use this string, and here let's say it is employees. So here I'm writing a couple of names. Let's say it is ABC DEF GHI. Let's say I'm having these 3 names over here, and we will perform a couple of operations on them. So as per my next learning, I want to fetch all these elements one by one by using the index. So let's say I have a requirement to fetch only the first element of this particular first array. How can I do that? To fetch only the first element, we have to deal with the indexes. So to work with the index, I have to use the name of this particular array like this, and over here again I have to use the square bracket, and in that square bracket I can provide the index. For example, it is 0, and remember the 0 index is for the first element. So if I'm writing this particular code, it means I am fetching only the first element from this particular array. If I run this application, then you can notice I'm having 1 over here on this output, and this hello world is coming from this line. Let's just comment this as well, and let's use this console.writeLine one more time, and this time I want to deal with this employees over here, and let's use this 1 over here. So 1 is the index of this second element. Index is something that will always start from 0. So this is 0 and this is 1. Let's run it. You can notice over here first we are getting this 1, it is coming from this first console.writeLine, and then we are getting this DEF, and it is coming from this particular line, and because we are using one index, so we are getting the second element at this place. Now let's say I want to find out how many elements are there in this particular array. For that I can simply use one property which is length, like this. Okay, let's just remove this one as well, and let's say length over here. Right, let's just run this application again and see what is the output. The output this time you can see we are having 5 from the first one and 3 from this second one. It means the length of this first array is 5 and the length of the second array is 3. Based on number of elements we are getting this length. Perfect. Now let's say I want to apply the for loop over here. Although we have applied this for loop multiple times in previous videos, but this time I want to understand how exactly that is working. So what we are writing over here, we are starting this loop from I is equals to 0. Why we are using 0? Because the index of the array starts from 0. If I will start this index from 1, then I may miss the first element, and we are writing the condition that it must be less than number of length. So what is the length over here? The length is 5. It means the index would range from 0 to 4, and that is what we have written over here. It is 0 to 4, and we are increasing this I by 1 because the index also gets increased by 1. And here let's say I'm writing this console.writeLine, console.writeLine, and remember what we are writing over here. We are writing the name of my array, which is numbers, and then we are using this square bracket and we are passing the value of I over here. So it means in the first iteration the value of I would be 0. So what we are writing over here, numbers of 0, something like this. And if we are writing this, then what would be the output? The output would be first element, right? So in the next iteration of this for loop, the value will be increased by 1. It means it would be 1 this time. And here we are displaying numbers of 1. If it is 1 over here, then what would be the output? It would be the second element. And this is how we will get all the elements one by one. Let's just comment these things and let's run it. Here you can see we are getting all the elements one by one. Now let's try the similar loop for this second array as well. And this time I have to use this employees, and that's it. You don't have to make any further change over here. Let's run it. This time you will notice first we will get all the elements from this first array, and then we are getting all the elements from this second array. Now let's understand what will happen if I want to set some values over here in this array. Can I do that? Yes, you can do that. So let's just comment these for loops as well. So let's say I want to make some changes over here. So it is numbers, and let's say I want to update the first element of this numbers array. So I have to use it like this, and now I can write my actual value over here. So let's say it is 100. So what I'm doing, I am simply replacing the first element with the value 100. Okay, let's just comment this second loop because I want to see the output only from this first array. We can also comment this line. What we are having, we are having this array. It has 5 elements. This is the maximum length, and I am replacing the first element with value 100. Let's run it. Here you can notice I'm getting 100 over here, right? This is how you can update all your elements. So if I want to update this one as well, I want to write 10 this time, and this is second. And let's say I want to assign some different data types. So for example, my name over here, you will notice immediately we will get an error. It is saying you cannot convert a string to integer because this number is something that can hold only integer values, and you cannot assign any other data type in this array. So this would be a problem. Let's say it is 22, and if I will run this application this time, then you will notice everything is working as expected and we are getting all the updated elements. Now here is a question that people generally ask in interviews. What if I want to assign different values or different data types in a particular array? Is that possible? The answer is yes, it is possible, because the array deals with the type that you have declared over here. And in one of the previous video we have covered that the parent of all these types is object. So I can declare my array of object type and I can assign any kind of data over there. Let's see how that will work. So I'm just commenting all these lines, and in the beginning basically I am declaring one array, so it is of type object, and this is the array, that's the name. And this time now I can assign any kind of value. Let's say it is 1, then in the second one it is this, then in this third one it is true, and then it is 12.22, like this. Perfect. So I'm having an array of different types over here, and if I will try to just loop all these elements and use the console.writeLine like this, And if I will just run this application to see the output on the console screen, you can see we are having all the elements over here. Even if you want to update the values after declaring it, let's say you want to use it like this, objects, and by using that square bracket, let's say the index is 2 and I want to assign some different values. For example, it is my last name, like this. Then you will notice there is no error and we can assign that also. See, this is the output here on the console window. The concept of array is very interesting. If I talk about some real applications, then in those real applications we generally don't declare an array of object type, because this is something that may create some problem with our data. If I want to perform some operations, then you will notice we have to cast all of them. The type of these elements is object now, and before performing any kind of operation we have to just convert them to their actual type. There are so many more things to learn about array in C# programming language, and we will continue this learning in the next video as well. That is all in the video. Thank you for watching.